Last year, I did a little project prior to Tales of Festival 2018 known as Tales of Recollections, where I looked back at all of the Tales of games I played up to that point and talked about what I liked and disliked about them. I had a lot of fun with it, so I thought, why not do it one more time, but with the remaining titles that I'm missing? Well, not all of them, mind you, just the ones that I finished during 2019. Those games being Tales of Destiny 2, Tales of Rebirth, Tales of the Tempest, and Tales of Hard Sar. This is Pam Bam Richard presenting to you Tales of Recollections 2019. Tales of Destiny 2 is a sequel that manages to have something for newcomers while providing fan service for the previous game. The first act was spent establishing the goals of our new cast, and it was an okay journey for Tales of Standards. Then things become more interesting in the second act, where familiar Tales of Traditions are introduced for the first time in the franchise, and the fan service provided here is what I prefer. It fills in the blanks for world building, characters, and plot that were left behind in the first game, without feeling contrived or irrelevant to the cast either. The only thing that kinda rubbed me the wrong way was the ending, but at least the journey getting there was good, and is my favorite narrative out of the sequels that I've played. The battle system evolving from Eternia injects even more high-octane action that makes every battle feel fresh and engaging. Not only that, but it's the first game to begin capitalizing on melee-based users who can cast spells. I had a lot of fun discovering more series staples in the franchise such as art extensions, skill unlocks, and especially the mystic arts, which were ever more vibrant and dynamic in the series at this point. It was also the first game that I played through with Combo Command, which was also the first and only time, as far as I know, that the item has mappable commands with quarter circle and half circle inputs. It makes me wonder why other Tales of games don't have this version of the item, as it was a lot of fun experimenting with it here. Overall, a strong title showing off how much fun 2D Tales of can get, and I give it a 4 out of 5. When I was getting into the series, there were two games that the community barely gave the light of day to. I played Legendia in 2013 and was blown away by everything it had to offer. The question is, did Rebirth do the same? 100% yes. After all the dancing around the theme of discrimination that multiple Tales of games are guilty for, it was refreshing to play a game that fully embraces that theme in its narrative exploration. As a result, the cast of characters flesh out rather well, and their dynamics are one of the strongest I've seen within the franchise. Each of them had an equal attention to development, and it was intriguing to see the game focus on the supporting party members before focusing on the development of the leads. While I've mentioned that Tales of Destiny 2 was my favorite narrative as a sequel, Rebirth had become my overall favorite narrative within a 30 to 40 hour playthrough. The gameplay was also unique to explore. With the whole 3-line arena and the force gauge that changes depending on your actions, it felt as if someone on the team was influenced by SNK arcade games and fitted within a Tales of Battle system. It is by no means traditional, but the added features here provide a more controlled pace in combat. Is it safe for me to increase my force gauge to use an arcane art? Should I decrease it in order to restore HP? Questions like this during battles made Rebirth different, but not jarring to the point where it loses its franchise's identity. With all that said, Tales of Rebirth was a fantastic surprise for me this year, and I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5. I remember when the Nintendo DS came out, third-party developers were experimenting with it in its early years, and Bamco was no different when bringing Tales of over. Tempest was the result of this, and you can tell that it felt more like a tech demo than a full game. The game tries to carry the 3-line linear motion battle system from Rebirth, but the characters can also face all 4 directions. You can deflect attacks with guard breaks, and charge up your attacks as well. Traditional features such as regular and arcane arts, spells, and strategies are also here. The reason why I bring this all up is because their concepts are there, but the execution lent itself to a more boring experience at most. I remembered when I was halfway through this game, I ended up finishing up another game because I was that bored. The only fun I really had was learning that Forrest is the character with the fastest backstep, which results to him zooming across the battlefield, but it wasn't enough to assuage the experience. Honestly, the story of this game is that the concepts are there, but the execution could have been better, though I do commend them for their ideas, such as the beast transformations in battle and the cooking system. The narrative felt like it was starting to set something up, but dumps all the climaxes at the end without much build-up. It left me with the feeling of, well, that happened, and moved on. Of all the games in the franchise that haven't had a remake yet, this one definitely needs it. It ended up being a product of the times, which is why I give it a 1 out of 5. Tales of Hearts R is the second Tales of game that 7th Chord worked on after Innocence R. Everything from Innocence R that I loved is all here. The rave system is gone, but it got replaced by the Chase Link system. I fell in love with it right away, as it felt like I was suddenly playing Dragon Ball Z in my Tales of game. There were countless times when I used Chase Link that my experimentations made discovering combinations between the playable cast all the more satisfying. The amount of care that 7th Chord has with the Tales of linear motion battle system ends up with an engaging experience for me. That's all I really ask for when playing these games. The narrative was alright, not my favorite, but it fits with the franchise well. Elements of the plot that I enjoyed include how the main cast reach out to others who are emotionally distressed, and the world building that suddenly escalated at the start of the second act. The biggest problem that players noted for the localization was its translation, and it also affected my experience with the game. It felt like the team got the message down, but went too far with the metaphors that the message's tone was lost. However, I'm not going to dock the overall game for it, as I was still able to extrapolate the core narrative with the localization, and the battle system more than made up for the translation shortcomings. Tales of Hearts R gets a 5 out of 5.